am Lisa Saunders with PAC-B TV out of Baldwinsville. For any of you that know Central New York, you will see that I live near Lock 24. So anyway, I have with me a guest that knows these locks and the Erie Canal very well. And Ashley, I just want you to introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me on today. It's nice to be included. My name's Ashley Quimby Simone. I am the Communications and Outreach Manager for the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor. So I do a lot of the communications work for our organization, including running our social media channels. I do things like write press releases, do interviews just like this one. But my favorite part of my job is running a program called the Canalway Challenge. And so I think that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today, which I'm excited to share.
Yeah, now there's a big push for people to really know about the challenge because this year is what?
It's the bicentennial of the Erie Canal.
Yeah, that is pretty exciting to think that 200 years ago this was completed. And the Governor Clinton at the time did his famous boat parade, bringing water from Lake Erie to New York City somewhere. I forget where, where he dumped it, but he dumped it. It's called the Wedding of the Waters. And that's pretty exciting. And I am now an end-to-ender, but I walk the trail. So I walk the Erie Canalway Trail. So I know every inch of the way between Buffalo and Albany. But you can actually take the challenge with totally different miles ranging from 1 to 360. In fact, I pushed my mother for the 1 mile challenge because mom wants a challenge, so yeah, we pushed her. So I got some good workout on my arms. But what's nice about the trail is that it is handicapped accessible and very friendly to wheelchairs. But anyway, why don't you just go ahead and tell us about the challenge, how you take it, what it's like. Anyway, and then I'll ask you questions from there.
Okay. So the Canalway Challenge is a challenge that you can complete completely on your own time at your own pace. So it's not a one-day thing or a weekend thing or a month-long thing. You can take the whole year, the whole summer. You can do the challenge like you did over multiple years. So it's really designed for people to be able to make what they want out of the challenge. And we have multiple mileage goals to help people do just that. So we start with the first mile, and that's really for people with disabilities and mobility challenges who have maybe never engaged with outdoor recreation before. The idea there is to go your first mile on the trail and let that lead to more, let that lead to a love for outdoor recreation. And like you said, the trail is the perfect place for people to kind of have that introduction because the trail is mainly off-road, it's flat, it's paved. The waterway is great for beginner kayakers because it's a hand-dug canal at least half of it. So there's calm waters, and it's really easy for people with mobility challenges to kind of get out there and go that 1 mile. We also have 15 miles, so you can go 15 miles on the Erie Canal, just like our pal Sal from the song that everybody knows. 90, 180, and 360. And this year only we have a 200-miler challenge, so you can go 200 miles on the Erie Canal for 200 years.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to do a kayaking one next, but I think I'm just going to do the 1 mile challenge to see how hard it is. Now, I did already kayak. I was excited to learn that I can count some stuff I've already done toward my challenge. I did kayak through Lock 24, and that was quite an experience. Yeah,
Did you love it?
It was interesting and exciting, and I felt really important. I had a friend stand on the bridge and take pictures of me to prove that this really happened, because I'm from Mystic most recently, and everybody kayaked there. And I was kind of like the losery gal in the bunch. Everyone was paddling much faster, leaving me, in shark infested waters, and they'd get ahead of me. And so this was a lot less scary than that. But I did talk to the guy, the lock tender, and I said, well, I've never done this. What do I do? So that was kind of interesting to learn that he said, just call ahead, because I can't believe that they will open it for just a kayaker, you know? So
Oh
I went
yeah.
with a friend who kayaks. And so I rented, and I'm in Baldwinsville, and there is kayak rentals here. It's like, it, there's an app, there's no person there, and you can
Hmm.
just do it on your app. So I rented
Hmm.
the kayak, and I called ahead, and he said, wear gloves because you're going to have to hold this slimy rope. And I'm really glad I did that. So, word of advice. So I wore little gardening gloves, and then so I called ahead. I said, we're coming. So he said, okay. And I hear all this, major machinery opening the lock. And so there we get in, and then we hold on to a rope. And then and I'm glad because it was slimy. And then we don't have to hold on tight. It's just a guide to keep you from flailing all around in there. And so we went up and then went through, and that was really cool. So
Yeah, it's
I'm gonna
much more gentle than people expect. It seems very intimidating, but then when you're in the lock and it's filling up, it's pretty slow and gentle. And I think, it's not as scary as a lot of people might think it is, but it's a really unique experience. If you've never kayaked through a lock, everyone should do it at least once.
I'm glad I did it. And so I think I'm going to do it more because I think that would be a fun thing for me to do. And then I can tell all my seafaring friends, look, I did this challenge. So I could grow in esteem. And I love that I'm now an end-to-ender. So I'm constantly bragging to everyone that I'm an end-to-ender, that
Yay.
I don't, and I do tell, because one guy, it was so fun because there was a guy who was there, standing there when we finally reached Albany. I had other friends that were meeting us there, thank goodness, to take pictures, and so we could celebrate together. And I said, where's the sign? Because I couldn't find the sign. Anyway, and he said, oh, it's over there. He goes, did you just walk from Buffalo? And I'm like, yes, we did. But I forgot to mention, but it's been 5 years that I've been walking from Buffalo.
Okay, that's okay. He doesn't need to know.
But he was excited for us. And so it made it seem so thrilling that there was this stranger who was so impressed, And my husband, because we had just walked 9 miles that day, and my husband and I sit there, we have our walking sticks. I even have a cane that turns into a little seat, because sometimes I just have to sit down. So we're
Right.
hobbling through with our aching hips and knees. But anyway, it was pretty exciting. So I just want more people to have a chance to do that, because I talked, my grandson's excited to do the 1 mile challenge. And you told me that, yeah, if he does the 1 mile, he can add that 1 mile into the 15-mile challenge.
That's right. And you can do the same stretch of trail over and over again, unless you're going for 360. If you're going for 360, you have to be a true end-to-ender like you are, Lisa. You have to do every mile in a different part of the canal. But anything 200 or below, you can do the same part over and over again. It doesn't have to be consecutive either. So it's just really about getting out on the trail, enjoying it. There's obviously endless benefits to it. There's a health and wellness benefit. So we're getting people active, we're getting people energized and out, but there's also this exploration element to the challenge. So having people find new restaurants, new craft beverage places to go see, going to see some of the heritage and historic sites that are all along the trail that tell the story of the history of the canal. So it's there's a lot of different things that this challenge kind of helps and supports, not just for the people who do it, but for the communities that the canal passes through too.
Oh yeah, we spent a lot of money on hotels, and because a lot of times we had to walk back to the car. So it's taken us, that's why it took us so long to do it. So we were spending, money in hotels and restaurants. I didn't lose any weight. Everyone's like, oh, you must be so skinny walking the trail. I'm like, not exactly. Like, we walk and then we eat a huge meal because we deserve it. And my husband likes the breweries. So that was fun. I even liked parts where there was no canal left, like in Weedsport, because there's the brewery there. We saw all these bicyclists just sitting there with these people was fun. And the fact that in central New York, there's a lot of what's called mural mania. All these
Mhm.
artists have done these historically interesting murals. So they're on these old warehouse type of brick walls painted. And I learned so much just by looking at those and having fun. Like in Weedsport, there's nothing lit there anymore, you know, because it all went to like the Seneca River. That part of central New York went to the river when they did the active canal. But it was fun to be able to say, oh, these buildings still exist. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know, so I actually really liked it. And we got lucky enough that we didn't do Syracuse until the Empire State Trail had connected some of the trails and done a big path.
Yes.
And you would think, ooh, who would want to do that? I'm in Erie Boulevard, in the center of Erie Boulevard. But it was really kind of fun because I knew, ooh, I'm walking where the Erie Canal actually flowed at one point. I can't see it, but I'm walking where it flowed, and I'm looking around at the little hills and go, oh, these old people, you know, in the olden days, they could see these hills. They probably didn't see the dollar stores and stuff like that, but there was something really even fun about that. And we actually, when we did that part of the trail, it was winter, it's freezing. So luckily we weren't totally in the middle of nowhere. So we had restaurants we could stop, a lot of them, to warm
Yes.
up and go to the bathroom. Other times going to the bathroom was a huge challenge when you're in the center of you know, especially in the center where it's
Yeah.
just villages with nothing. So I won't get into how we managed that, but anyway.
Well, you have a whole book about how you manage that. So there's an interesting reads in there. We are working with the Canal Corporation, and we do this often, but this year in particular, we just finished up a amenities report and gap analysis that helps us evaluate where amenities are needed along the trail and the water. So we did a water assessment and a Canalway Trail assessment. And it's our goal to be able to work with some of the communities through some of our grants programs to kind of fill some of those gaps where amenities are needed on the trail. And we're always, you know, looking to hear the public's feedback on where they think a good place would be for things like bathrooms, you know,
Are you allowed to
kayaking
have outhouses?
launches.
Like one time I was so excited I saw an outhouse, but it was locked. So because it was in the middle of nowhere. So maybe somebody was doing construction or whatever and needed to have it. But yeah, is that something you're allowed to have? Is more outhouses, even if it's just that?
Well, it depends. There's a lot of logistics that go along
Yeah,
with it. It's
getting
about
in and that.
who owns the land.
Yeah.
But I can say that for us and for the New York State Canal Corporation, who, you know, maintain the canal, we're really looking for everything new that gets installed along the canal to be ADA compliant and fully accessible to everybody.
Mhm.
So that would include bathrooms, adaptable kayak launches, picnic tables that allow people in wheelchairs to be able to sit at the picnic table with their family, those types of things. So a lot of those amenities, there will be certain standards that have to be met to make them accessible for people with disabilities.
I think the kayak launches in Baldwinsville are accessible because, boy, it was
Mhm.
sure easy
They
to
are.
get in and pull
Mhm.
myself in and out of the, you know, that was really great. Like I said, that's why I'm kind of excited to try this new challenge. I heard kayaking from end to end is probably the hardest. I watched this guy, he did all three challenges. He walked it, biked it, and kayaked it. And he said kayaking was by far the worst. He goes, I thought walking was bad, hard, but kayaking was really just exhausting because he's camping. I didn't camp at all.
Mhm.
I wasn't going to do that.
Mhm.
You know, I was very happy in hotels with my feet up watching TV at night. But anyway, but what I liked about doing the slow 5-year plan is that we really got to know each village very well. And we could, because we always had the car with us, we could go see sites, you know, that were within 5 miles or whatever. So I learned a
Yes.
lot of history about upstate New York, and I had no clue. My family's from upstate New York, so I used to come here in the summer to Wayne County, near Lake Ontario. But I was surprised to learn that my ancestors were engineers on the canal. Like I had no idea. So I found that out. They lived in Lyons, and Jacob Leach was an engineer on the first canal. So he was part of the planning committee. So I have, old books that talk about what he did to plan for Governor Clinton to come in with the Seneca chief, and, prayers said and speeches given by who. I just thought that was so fun. And then like a few days later, his son was born, Augustus, and he ended up becoming an engineer on the expanded canal. And so that was just kind of fun. And because I met the guy that kind of runs the Mural Mania thing, I told him, Mark DeCracker, about my ancestors. He's like, "Oh, let's paint them in our next mural that we're doing." So that's kind of fun. So now their faces are on a building that's on along the trail. So that's kind of fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
because I
there's
like history, that was like a great mix for me, because I wanted time to read the plaques. So
yes.
so that I could learn. And like I said, when you're slowly walking, you have time to learn the history. So that was, I don't know who did all these plaques. I know historical societies or Boy Scouts or whoever, but I love the
Mhm.
plaques. So thank you to all of you, whoever you are, because I learned a lot. Like we had German POW, prisoners of war here in Chittenango, like at this canning factory or whatever that was. I mean, that's cool. And a lot of them stayed because I guess they liked the canal so much they had to stay. I don't know. I learned a lot. So that's what was wonderful. And of course, saw a lot of blue herons and different birds and things. So that was fun. I
Yeah.
met,
Well, that's the great part about the canal is it's kind of this confluence of history, nature, infrastructure, engineering. There's a lot that we can learn from the canal itself. So, we have a various education programs that we run for students to help to bring them to the canal, to help them learn from the engineering, the environmental impact, the impact to
how do
native
teachers
peoples.
access these teachings?
There's free resources and free lesson plans on our website. It's at the Erie Canal Learning Hub. So if you just search the Erie Canal Learning Hub, it should be one of the first things that come up. We have 360 tours. So if people are unable to actually visit the canal, they can get an up close look at some of the canal infrastructure. And we also offer field trips through some of our programming with the National Park Service and the New York State Canal Corporation. So we can send kids on field trips to the canal for free. So teachers can apply for that on our website as well. And that usually opens in the fall, and that money is then allocated throughout the school year.
So
So
tell their website where people can go to look.
it's eriecanalway.org. And then there's a tab at the top in the main navigation called Learn. If you click that, that has all of our education resources right there.
And what's your Facebook page where people can learn things?
It's at Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor on Facebook, and we're just Erie Canalway on Instagram. So if you just search Erie Canalway, you'll be able to find us either way. But we do post things at least weekly that have historical facts. So we do a Throwback Thursday every week.
Oh,
Yeah, that has a historical fact with a historic photo. So if you go today, if you check that out, today's a Thursday, you'll be able to see that. We post things like itineraries, day trips, guides. We post things about our programming. So stuff related to the Canalway Challenge, our water trail programming. So if you're looking to stay up to date with all things Erie Canal, and events. We post all of the upcoming events that are happening each month. We also host an events calendar. So if anyone's looking to take part in an event for the bicentennial, you can head to the events calendar. It's eriecanalway.org/events. You can filter by region. So, if you were looking for just events in Central New York, you can do that. If you're planning to visit a different part of the canal this summer, you can check out events that are happening in that part of the canal whenever you're planning to go visit too. So definitely check that out, and be sure to follow us on social media for all the updates.
show that book that you said you had, that I used it as a walker. I didn't use it as much as the bicycling. That was great because I used those maps, especially that's how we found some of our hotels, I think, and some of the
Oh, great.
restaurants. And like I said, the trail matches east and west. You're pretty much on that modern boating canal. So that's when
Mhm.
those maps and books were really handy. And I couldn't believe it was free. I just had to pay for the shipping, but you can just
Mhm.
download it for free. So especially
Yep.
kayakers are going to want to download those maps that make it
Yes.
very handy. So like I said, it's fun because I have a lot of resources, you know, in my taking up half my apartment here, but it was fun to read it, you know, and coming from a seafaring village of Mystic, everyone, sailors and everything, would always meet at restaurants and they'd have their little coastal navigation charts and they'd be going over it, planning a trip. So I felt important, you know, sometimes you know, we'd sit at a restaurant and I'd pull out my navigational charts of the trail. Look, Jim, we should go here and there next. So I just kind of felt important, like I was figuring out something epic, you know. So that was
Well, you were.
I know. I like it. I like that you called it on the website status. Like to get to end-to-ender status, you have to do every mile. So I can't believe I have a status, and now I'm actually a Canalway ambassador. You asked if we wanted to do it, and I'm like, oh yeah. So now my friends love it that they know an ambassador now. So.
Well, you were always an ambassador. You just have the official title now.
I know. I feel important. I'm not wearing my T-shirt, but my T-shirt looks like the one you're wearing. Except I don't know. Yours has
Yes.
long sleeve shirts, I think. Yeah. So I think mine looks
Yes.
like that, and on the back it says something. Ask me about the trail,
Hmm.
or ask me about the challenge or something.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
haven't worn it yet, but I will wear it with my grandson because he loves to talk to strangers. So when he does his
Great.
challenge, I'll wear it and I'll give him little stickers that he can hand out in the cards because he's gonna love doing that. So
Perfect.
yeah. So I'm so glad because I don't know that I knew about the challenge when we actually started it. I realized like I was a little into it when I realized, oh, you know, so I went on the website and I thought, oh my gosh, so we didn't register the challenge right away. We were pretty early on, but so I would just added my miles that I had done on your
Hmm.
website. I can't tell you how helpful that website was for logging miles and my notes because we did it over 5 years. Sometimes we weren't we would go east or west depending on our mood or the weather. And so sometimes I wouldn't be back to a site for like 4 months later. And I'd be like, oh, where did I park? You know, where do we leave off of? And I was able to keep track of all that on your site. So that was hugely helpful. So
Great.
thank you for that. Did you design it or did somebody else design it?
That was actually designed by our deputy director, Jean McKay, and she worked with our website company to make that happen. So it's all custom stuff for the challenge, which is great.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So thank you for that. And you have favorite sites visited so people can keep track of that. Sometimes I just wrote, you know, bathroom or restaurant when I was in the middle of nowhere. I think in the end, I think I preferred my husband wasn't always so excited about the on-road parts, but I actually liked a lot of them because then I'm near things. You know, I can watch
Hmm.
neighborhoods and people, and you're going to be walking right on a restaurant parking lot. You know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
kind of, you know, after a while, trees kind of look alike. No offense, trees, but anyway. So I actually didn't mind the on-road parts that much. So something to have is always like it was great when I finally got earphones or headphones, whatever those things are called, the little things you stick in your ear. Because then my
Yeah,
husband
yeah.
liked to be listening. Because if we're on road or sometimes we're near a highway, it was handy to have. We could each have something in our ears so we could listen to the same thing. So there are ways to get through these long, long miles, especially if you're doing it alone. But anyway, so there are
Yeah.
ways to make it fun. And of course, you got to have your trail mix. Had a lot of that. And shade, I would bring my own shade. I learned to do that because when we're not in the woods, those brutally hot summers in the middle of the day, wow, that can be
Yeah.
hot. And we had one time, one guy tried to buy our water. He's like, can you sell me any of your water? And all I had was like an inch left. And I said, "Ah, we hardly have any left." Like we learned our lesson because we don't want to carry too
Mhm.
much water because then it's weight. But then if we
Right.
don't have enough, and it's a hot day, it
Hmm.
can get tough. So we did buy
Yeah.
a water purifier. We didn't end up using it, but that guy ended up drinking from a brook. I hope he's okay. I don't know his name. I don't know where he is. So these are
I
things.
hope he's okay too. But it sounds like you got a good feel for the diversity that there is on the trail. You mentioned walking through downtown Syracuse and visiting the restaurants there, which is amazing. Which, side note to that, there is an initiative in Central New York where each brewery, local brewery in Syracuse in Central New York, is creating their own bicentennial beer. So that's a program that's being launched from the Erie Canal Museum. So definitely tell your husband
The
to go
Erie
check
Canal
that out.
Museum from Syracuse.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
The,
that's
the
right on
Erie
the
Canal
trail. And
Museum.
that's like a
Yep.
great museum. Oh my gosh. That was such a good museum. And to think that I called it one of the wonders of the Erie Canalway Trail, because that waylock
Yes.
is so cool. The fact that they
Yes.
put a replica of a barge in there so you can
Hmm.
imagine what it looked like when they would float in there and get weighed or whatever. I thought that
Yeah.
was
And it's the last remaining waylock on the canal. So there used to be waylocks in most of the major cities. And that's the only one that's still exists, and it's now the Erie Canal Museum. So I recommend that anyone who's looking to get some hands-on experience for the history of the canal, they can check that out first. It's a great place to start, especially if you're in Baldwinsville. It's nice and close, with it being in Syracuse.
Yeah, I go back to Camillus over and over. That tends to be where I do the most, because I walk it all the time because it's on our way to and from the movie theater when we go to the movies in Camillus. So
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly walking that section of the trail. And what's great about that is it does have a museum, it's got a boat ride, and it's just from their replica of a canal store to the aqueduct, the only aqueduct left, on the canal. And
Yes.
that's really cool because now I finally understand how aqueducts work. Usually you just see these very interesting looking remains, but this is actually there with a wooden trough, and you get it. Okay, it's carrying the barge over a brook, and this is or a hill or whatever it is you have to get it over. So
Mhm.
that's a great place to walk. So
Yeah, and talk about amazing volunteers keeping the plaques in good shape for all of us to enjoy. That whole site at Camillus was saved completely by volunteers. So it
yeah.
was people who gave their time, their free time, their energy, which for most people is very limited, to save that piece of history on the Erie Canal. So the story behind that site is really fantastic, and it's a definite favorite among people who go end to end. Not just because it's the midpoint for people, but also because of the history that lives on there at that
And there
site.
are so many plaques there. That's like a
Mhm.
really great plaque place. That's why I can keep going and finding a new plaque, and you can see all versions, the original canal there too.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, no, I love going there, and I love just seeing they have an original wooden lock there, that's out of the
Mhm.
water, but that way you can see it. I ended up buying a stuffed mule, because I figured, well, mules were what ruled the day. So I carried our
Mhm.
mule with us a lot when we went. So I took a lot of pictures of Camillus for my book. So I just put the mule everywhere, because I had him with me. And it's just great because I have a new appreciation for mules now, because they won't drink the stinky water. They won't work beyond when they're tired, because horses are so loyal. They'll do whatever you say, even if it kills them. So I just thought that was interesting that, mules can take the sun longer. So I just thought that was great. That there's a place in the
Isn't that
world
why
for
they
mules.
say you're stubborn as a mule?
I guess so. Yeah. Right. They won't go into battle with you because they're like, I'm not going in there, but they would haul those, ambulances, in the days before motors. So I have a
Mhm.
new appreciation for mules and Sal and the song, and I can so relate to that song now, because we've done it, and we get
Mhm.
what Sal was going through. Because we had to follow her along this trail and be hot and miserable. And sometimes we're happy. Like I said, my favorite time I think was fall in general, because
Mm.
less bugs. And when the trees and the leaves start coming down, then you can see a lot of the ruins. Most of the time you can see the ruins anyway, but there are a lot more that we could see when the leaves were down.
Mm.
And of course, deep winter was, you could really see everything, but then of course you're dealing with ice and snow. And we did it. I have, snowshoes and ice cleats, and we meet other people on the trail that are, diehards. They're doing it too. And so we would get tips from other ice cleat people. Oh, where'd you get your cleats from? So we did meet a lot of people from all over the country. Actually, really from all over the country, because sometimes when I would sit and just find a restaurant right on the trail, like in Schenectady, there's a really nice coffee shop. I don't know if you know which one. I can't even think of the name of it, but I met a lot of bicyclists that were there. And I love this part on Schenectady because you're seeing all these old buildings with the signs.
Yes. Schenectady has some of the oldest buildings in the country in the Stockade District. That's
Yes.
a great little neighborhood in Schenectady, which that's my home area. I live just outside of Schenectady, so I love it. It's there's a ton of history in that community, and it's often not thought of as like, the quintessential canal town because it is on the newer version of the barge canal, but Erie Boulevard in Schenectady, which is the main road that cuts through, similar to Syracuse, was the Erie Canal, and it ran right adjacent to the Mohawk River. So the stockade is kind of between where the hand dug Erie Canal was, on Erie Boulevard and the Mohawk River. So it was kind of perfectly situated between, those two bodies of water. And there's tons of history there.
Yeah, I loved it. All those signs. George Washington was here, there. Like, where didn't
Mhm.
that guy sleep? And then to know about Indian War there. That was French and Indian. I forget which war it was. I'm not
Mm.
even sure, but burnings and this and that, and a lot of drama happened there. So again, because we're walking and have time, we're just reading them all. So I don't think I have anything else to ask. Do you have anything you wish we had talked about?
I don't think so. We covered a lot of ground, Lisa,
We
and
did,
you.
but you know what? I did forget to talk about, I love that I saw that people who really just can't get out on the trail can get miles
Mhm.
by watching videos. And I know a
Yes.
lot of, because of the work I do raising awareness for congenital cytomegalovirus, I know a lot of kids in wheelchairs. My mom is elderly. I know a lot of, folks in wheelchairs all
Mhm.
around. And the thought that I could tell them, look, just try one, just do your exercises or stretches. If a child can't do their own exercises, their mom or therapist could be stretching them, doing their therapy while
Mhm.
watching a video, and then they get to earn a mile because they tell you each video is a mile. There's 15 of those little videos, and it's great because you're actually on the trail without a whole lot of walk. Like I watched a couple, so there's not a whole lot of talking in it, so that somebody can be listening to their instructor telling them lift their leg, do this or that, for their exercises, and they can watch it and get a feel for what it's like to be on the trail. So I thought that was very cool. So I've been telling people
Yes.
about that.
Yeah.
So
Great. Yes.
yeah.
And we just came out with some new ones that are in the Rochester area. And
Oh.
those ones have cycling and kayaking miles in them too. So
Ah.
yeah, so there's some new videos. We haven't made a big announcement about it yet, but they are up on our website and they're available for people to start using whenever they want. But those videos kind of work twofold. They're a great way to bring the trail to people who can't get out, but they also give people with disabilities and mobility challenges an idea of what to expect when they do get here. So being able to see the actual trail in every step of the way really kind of gives people a sense of comfort to know that they have and the confidence that they need to get out there and go that mile, because sometimes the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge is thinking, I don't know what I'm going to come across. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what the trail is going to be like. I don't know what the parking is going to be like. All of those things. Those things are hard for everybody, but they're especially hard for people with disabilities and mobility challenges. So our hope too is that people will not just do those videos in their home, but that there will be another audience of people who will use them as a way to kind of feel more comfortable to know what to expect in this mile by mile guide on the trail.
Yeah. And I like how it really does. I used it to raise awareness of an issue I care about because I loved learning that it really propelled the women's rights movement, that they out
Mhm.
there on boats with banners or on their bicycles with banners. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's exactly something I can do. And it really did spread awareness, anti-slavery, women's rights from
Mhm.
upstate New York to the rest of the country, because then
Mhm.
people could, bring these ideas on. So I think it's a great way to unify the state and the country, because I know a lot of people, I think you have statistics, I don't know what they are off the top of my head, of people that come from other states that come to
Mhm.
do the trail. And it's just a great thing where we could all do it together and, realize the canal changed the, world really. And, we can still use it to change the world if we want to, or at least meet other people and be nice to each other, because we're all excited to ask each other, do you know what the next bathroom is for the next restaurant or whatever? And I was leaving these little stop C&V rocks and I had people asking me about it. And I'm like, that's the whole point of
Mhm.
what we were doing. And I loved all the maps. I took pictures of us in front of, pretty much every map saying you are here, just so I could kind of prove it to myself. We really did this. So when Jim and I are really old and gray and don't remember anything, we'll at least have picture proof that we actually did something. Because I got known for abandoning ship in Mystic. I was going to take this epic sailing adventure. And after one night, I said, I can't do it anymore. And I left this poor couple on our sailboat and took a cab back to a train because I was terrified out of my mind. And that was so nice about walking at piecemeal where my car was nearby, because if I needed to abandon ship, trail, I'd have a car and I'd have my hotel.
Yes.
So it's kind of good for people like me who want to be adventurers, but aren't really when it comes down to it, when stuff happens.
No, Lisa, I would say you are an adventurer now, but it is a good way for people to get started. Like I think like the trail is so unique and it's so diverse. So you could go somewhere and be walking by restaurants and bathrooms and have that be your first mile. And then your second mile, you go a little farther out. And your third mile, you go a little farther out than that, until you're next thing you know it, you're walking 360 miles across the state. So it offers a diversity of landscape for all different kinds of adventurers, from beginners to people who are comfortable spending a week camping off of the back of their bicycle. So that's the beauty of the Canalway Trail, is you can really make it what you want. But I would definitely call you an adventurer, Lisa.
Well, I did, because of the food situation, like when it's winter or during a pandemic or you're in those central areas, I did make hardtack, because you always hear about soldiers and sailors living off hardtack. So I made it, and boy, it's tough to eat. So I decided hardtack is not what you want. I mean, you can soak it in water, but ew, you know what I mean, to get it soft enough to eat. But it does keep for a long time. So for those of you who want to break from trail mix, you can make hardtack. There are recipes for it, and that's just flour and water and salt if you want to add it. But yeah, so I did learn how to, like I said, I like to imagine myself having all these troubles and that we're starving and all that. What would I do? So it's just fun for me, who has more fun adventuring in my head than actually really doing it. So there was nothing scary about the trail, except when we would get caught in thunder and lightning. That
Mm,
was scary, actually, because there was no
yeah.
place for us to hide really. And we did the thing you are not supposed to do, which was go under a bush. But it was a bush, at least. It wasn't a tall tree. And then it was so cool because we weren't even hitchhiking back to where our car was. We just were kind of miserable. Just the brain, we didn't have an umbrella. We didn't, and my husband and I don't know how to do Uber, like the app on your phone. So that's a really great way to not have to, walk double back to your car. But anyway, this couple felt sorry for us when they saw us by the side of the road, and they gave us a ride. And I just said, oh, thank you. I guess we didn't look too scary, these grandparents with their little walking sticks. So I'll never forget those people. I don't know who they are, but to give us a ride, because that was the only time we were actually scared, because of the lightning.
Yeah.
Getting caught in snow wasn't bad. Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
You put your head down and blinding snow. I mean, because we had to do it all year long. Whenever we could have a free time away from the other responsibilities we had to go. It didn't
Mhm.
matter the weather. So we did experience every type of weather, and lightning is the worst. So hopefully
Well,
people.
then you're definitely an adventurer.
Okay.
Don't
All
sell
right.
yourself short there.
All right, I won't. Well, thank you so much for coming on this interview, because I'm going to send this to all my friends so I can get them motivated to get out, 'cause it just feels
Great.
like anybody can do this. Even if you have
Yes.
to be a living room adventurer, you can still do it because of those
Yes.
videos. So,
Yes.
well, thank you so much. And I hope you have I hope I see you at some of these bicentennial events.
Oh, definitely. We'll be out on the trail a lot this year.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much. Take
Thanks,
care.
Lisa.
Bye.
Bye.